Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. Grab your popcorn, grab your drink, grab your pills, and get pen and paper. Get pen and paper today. Okay? So we're going to take a quick break and come right back.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.
Well, the Christmas season is here. Dress up all the fun and look like Christmas, nice and shiny. You have to try to look like Christmas because the feeling is certainly not here. But I need to let the public know, if they don't know by now, because I know there are personal things on the port as well. All year, we had issues as business people. Well, I would say small business. I don't know how the big businesses getting through. But as small business owners, we had issues with getting our merchandise off the port. We've been told that there's no place to put the goods when they strip the container or containers. Okay. Normally, around Christmas season or Carnival, the busy season, we get that kind of stuff happening. But all year we had it. And today, right now, this season, our stuff is stuck on the port. We've been told that your container is number 50, your container is number 40 something, your container is number 60 something. Stuff that came in weeks and weeks ago are sitting on the port because they have no place to put the merchandise when they strip the container. And small businesses, take your little monies, purchase stuff because it's a season, although, it's as bleak as ever, but you'll get one or two things soon because they have a little events and those chicks like to look good. And those guys does come forward. You understand? So, we waiting doomsday. Persons are coming for their stuff for their staff parties. And all we could say is on the port. It's on the port. It's on the port. I am not sure what's going on the port, but this is a lot of nonsense. We need our merchandise so that we can sell to our people to make back the little money. It's cost price, we just make back enough. Because things are much more expensive out there where we purchase our stuff, the wholesale stuff. And so we can't mark up as we would like to. So we barely scraping surface already as it is. And it's sitting on the port. I don't know who is in charge, who is the minister responsible for Port Authority. Because I know it's a subsidiary of the government. We need some kind of help here now. We need some kind of help. The last I was told, my container is number 40 something. And that was a few days ago. Now tell me, when am I going to get my stuff before the holidays? It don't seem so. It don't look so. And so who's paying my bills? Who's going to pay my bills? The bills for the business, the bills for who? Who is going to pay them? Because if I have no money, I can't pay my bills. This is ridiculous. And so people must talk out, and persons, the ordinary man who's waiting on a little barrel or with little stuff that their family sent for them. What's going on? Okay, moving right along, we need our merchandise from the port. I want to give you a quick update on the budget presentation I made in comparison with the 2022 budget presentation. Now, the largest, and I'm going to use, I'll probably do it periodically throughout the next year, but we're going to start with agriculture. So we pull the agriculture expenditure there. And what the Prime Minister himself said to us, that it is the largest agricultural budget, that is provisions for expenditure ever over the last 10 years, is what he said. I am saying ever because if it's the largest over the last 10 years, I mean, before that we used to have, not these billion-dollar budgets. So it has to be the largest ever, because beyond 10 years, definitely it wouldn't reach to this level. So the largest ever, right? Let's compare it with the NP 2022 budget. Agriculture is identified under vote 6-4 of the estimates. In 2022, that ministry had 2 less departments than the 2023 budget. So fisheries and cooperatives was added to the 2023 budget under agriculture. Now that's the first deception that we were not told about. We were not told about, well, it was added and we did not pay attention, so to speak, right? So you could tell us anything when you're reading the budget. It's the largest in 10 years, and we there and we're not paying close attention. Not anymore. Simon says it's paying attention. In the 2023 budget, 2,955,473 was included for fisheries, and $658,112 for cooperatives. This overall increase is $3,613,585, and can be still broken down into an increase of $2,193,585 for recurrent expenditure, and $1,420,000 for capital expenditure. So now those two figures totaling the $3,613,585. Very interestingly, when one subtracts the provisions for recurrent expenditure for fisheries and the cooperatives under vote 6-4 in the 2023 budget, we find that less money was budgeted in 2023 for recurrent expenditure under that vote than in 2022. That is the amount provided in the 2023 budget under vote 6-4 for the same department in the 2022 budget was $12,935,806 in 2023, compared to $13,999,113 in 2022, but about a $1 million difference, right? 1 million. The real difference in the two budget provisions under vote 6-4 is the capital budget, that is for projects or non-recurrent expenditure. In 2022, the capital expenditure provided for was $6,538,493. In 2023, the capital expenditure provided was $24,301,493. The difference of $17,763,000. Don't get excited. That can mainly account for the project, the Food Security Enhancement Project, for which $16 million was allocated. And that was to be financed by a loan. Of the $16 million, which was located for the 2023 budget cycle, the 2024 budget reveals that only $1,987,000 was spent. There was also $2 million additional allocations made in the 2023 budget for expanding of new areas as follows: $400,000 from local revenue for development of the cannabis industry. We want to find out what's going on there, because you remember I did a program on the cannabis, and that was done sold out already to a company or a gentleman in TNT. We have a new commission. They were supposed to come to us, they promised to come to us in August, and we had nothing about them. The year has now ended, right? $20,000 was allocated for feasibility study in the 2022 budget. That's with the cannabis industry. $20,000 was allocated for the feasibility studies in the 2022 budget. The 2024 budget reveals that $119,267 was spent from the sum in 2023. $800,000 from local revenue for the agricultural census, $300,000 from local revenue for the institutional strengthening support. The 2024 budget reveals that only $80,101 was spent from the sum in 2023. $300,000 from local revenue for agricultural information enhancement, and the 2024 budget reveals that nothing was spent from that sum in 2023. $200,000 from local revenue for exportation of agri-products. The 2024 budget reveals that only $15,143 was spent from the sum in 2023. Folks, in essence, what we have here and what we're seeing here, my friends, is a deceptive Prime Minister, advisors, and administration at large. They willfully deceive the people with ambiguous figures. Every bad word in the English dictionary, every bad word in the English-speaking dictionary can be used to describe Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and his government. A very elusive bunch. God help us. God help us. But we're moving on. We're moving right along. And we have a GPG update. Folks, to date, nothing coming from the Prime Minister nor his government on the visit of Global Petroleum Group, the GPG Group, to Grenada. Oil and gas continues to be a ball of confusion. Mixed messages are coming from Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and his technical working committee. The Prime Minister after months of ignoring GPG, invited them to Grenada to meet with him. Months after they, meaning GPG, tried and tried again to get his attention. He invited them here to meet, and when they got here, passed them on to his technical working group in a three-man committee chaired by Superman Richard Duncan, and the two others being V. Nazim Burke and Rodney George. The meeting was cordial, with some reasoning and reassuring statements, which now seems like empty commitments in a private meeting. So it was private, and you could say all the nice things, all the niceties, but we don't know about it out here. We are not hearing about it out here. And it's kept quiet. Despite holding out to them, meaning GPG, that the government was ready to make a public statement. And we were promised that public statement by the Prime Minister. Remember, he promised in one of his many interviews, or some, probably more than one, that we would get to hear something about the whole GPG saga in November of 2024, right? This November that just went there. On Tuesday, the 3rd of December, the day of the scheduled meeting, there was an agreed draft release, agreed by both parties, prepared even before GPG touched down at the MBIA, right? Both sides created the draft, negotiated before GPG got on the plane. So what happened to that draft? What happened to the draft release? Since it was never released to us, the people, right? What is he holding out for? What is the make-believe about? Because right now it's coming across like he's make-believing with GPG, pretending. But you know they're very good at that, very good at pretending. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell continues to show signs of being rogue. It appears that the Prime Minister wants to merge his so-called technical working group with the advisory committee, which was established by the laws of Grenada. That is the advisory committee. That is established by the laws of Grenada. It is also very clear that the Prime Minister is not abiding by the laws of the land. Now, according to the Petroleum Act, a minister should be appointed by the Governor General, like all other ministers, of course on the advice of the Prime Minister, but nothing so. That minister will take care of all petroleum affairs. Now, why is the government insisting on disobeying the clear words of the Act? And I'm going to ask it again. Why is the government insisting on disobeying the clear words of the Petroleum Act? They are deliberately creating parallel structures so that they can control and manipulate what is going on, what is happening here on island. There is no structure. We are like a runaway train. The Prime Minister is a trained lawyer. He never allowed us to forget that he says it all the time. I'm a lawyer.
I'm a lawyer. We can get to court when the time comes. and who want to sue can sue.
I'm a lawyer. Who have to sue can sue. So he knows when he's breaking the law. And I do believe he knows what he's doing as well. You know, the Donald Trump syndrome. Deliberately breaking the laws of the land. I mean, time and time again, ignoring the laws, breaking the laws. He might as well suspend the Constitution. He ignores it. Almost always, he ignores it. In other news, update, the country is run by Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and 3 technocrats. Andrea St. Bernard, Orlando Romaine, and Teddy St. Louis, who attends cabinet meetings and in fact is the official cabinet because they're the ones make the decisions. They're the ones, even when members of the second cabinet try to say something, they either been ignored or be downed or it's thrown on the side. But the information reaching me about those 3, it brought me back to Auntie Fran. And there's a quietness, really, with Auntie Fran these days. And so her name did not come up. Remember, she was a member of that, that first cabinet before the chief of staff came in. So I'm not sure, but I'll do some digging to find out what's going on with Auntie Fran, because I ain't like how they throw out Auntie Fran. The ministers of government are not allowed to make decisions in the cabinet. In other words, sit down and shut up. This is me saying this here now because from the information reaching me, it's either rat go with their tongue. They obviously have no testicular fortitude. So sit down and shut up. Not just supporters of the NDC are disgruntled, according to we boy Django, but we come into Django in a minute. But the cabinet, the second cabinet of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, so to speak, are also very disgruntled. And by the way, are starting to speak out. But behind the scenes, you know, she would tell a person who would tell a person, look at what Minister so-and-so say. You know, that's why they couldn't keep the senator in there. Because he wasn't sitting down. He wasn't about to sit down and be treated like a sheep and just take nonsense, see nonsense happening, see the corruption happening, and say nothing. And so they had to get rid of the others. Are all when Senator Thomas said over the carnival, if he didn't play jab, he would have been fired. You mad? You want the Prime Minister to fire me? The Prime Minister didn't play jab, you know. The Prime Minister didn't play jab, but he had to play jab or he'd be fired. And I mean, it might come across as a joke, but the level of dictatorship that is taking place inside that cabinet and throughout with this Prime Minister, it might well be. It might well be. They're afraid to speak out for the most part because they don't want to lose their salaries. And I could understand that. Some of them didn't have a salary for years. People like Joseph Andel and so, a real salary. And some of them never had a salary before. And to get this big salary, plus the perks. I mean, you could understand sometimes, but as I said to them, history will not forgive them for keeping silent on some of these matters that the nation needs to know about. It will not forgive them. And so I guess they don't want to become hungry mouth and beggy again.
But you are driving at a point, which is you have to serve the people. If you're hungry mouth, if you beggy, you can come and be parliamentarian. All kind of people go buy you because they know you're hungry mouth. So you see, Mr. Speaker, you're a doctor, you're a professional. That's the point. Because you and I are professionals, we can serve and people can't buy us.
People go by you and they knocked the desk. They knocked the table. You can't be hungry mouth and beggy and be a parliamentarian. Not like you and me, Mr. Speaker. You're a doctor. I am my profession. Nobody could buy us. Oh, really? And they knocked the table. A very unhappy bunch of people sitting in the cabinet. And I know it for a fact. I ain't gonna say how I know it because you know what they said, I got Lockwood fired. What is amongst them, and they have acknowledged the paying of the teachers their duck salaries and the paying of the pension and gratuity at the beginning of their tenure was the biggest mistake they've made, and they've regretted doing so. But of course, can't do nothing about it. It's too late. Because you see, they just come in, they had no clue, they see money, they say, because remember the prime minister, well, the political leader, Deacon Mitchell, during the campaign, had said even if they have to borrow the money to pay the pensioners, they would. But when they reached in there, they realized they didn't have to borrow. Now, the duck salaries to the teachers, that was a show off. Not even the cabinet of Grenada knew that he was going to pay the duck salaries. At their signing in at the stadium, remember, that is when he made the announcement, and he said there that they do not know. They did not know. He have not even brought it to the cabinet yet. Mother always said, show off is an expensive thing. Now in 2024, they can't even read the budget, the 2025 budget bus. And so, again, they blame it on Beryl. Poor Beryl. Beryl come, she do she thing and she gone she way, but she getting blamed. She get blamed from now until we see the backs of the NDC. The cabinet members, at least most of them, has come to the realization that they are being starved out by the prime minister. It's all about himself, Handy, and St. David. My observation is that Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell is trying real hard to win his St. David's constituency. Not with boots on the ground, because he don't be on the ground, but by giving gifts to his constituents, like the bathroom and toilet, like the playgrounds for the kids, like the 1,000 cricket kits to the young ones, things like that, like jobs to well, mostly women, big jobs in the ministerial complex, those sorts of things, right? Then he can win his seat when he rings the bell, and to hell with the rest of the cabinet. Then he can boast that he won his seat and that he's still popular But he can't do it alone because the rest of them is incompetent and can't do their job, you know? And so it's time to move on, you know? It's time to move on. He's the only actor in the movie. Let's not forget that. So he would show up the rest for their incompetence. And I mean, they are. But so is he. But he has the power and the funds to act differently and not give them a penny. That's why I said they're being starved out, right? And so after that, he would ride out into the sunset. It is clear he doesn't want to continue this. He don't even care. It is time to move on and make some real money. It is clear he wants out. He carries around a don't care attitude, really. He don't care who do what, who take what. Living it up, partying and networking. I mean, the Prime Minister is airborne for the most part. I'm almost certain that the acting Prime Minister has spent more time in the role as Prime Minister than the Prime Minister himself. He doesn't care about the struggles of the people. He was never part of any kind of struggle for any kind of people. Before nor during his stewardship. He's a playboy. I mean, the Prime Minister traveled twice recently again. The Prime Minister left Grenada for Guyana on Friday, the 6th of December, to attend a party in Guyana. And there's no record of such travel coming from his office or the Government Information Service, the GIS. To date, there's no record of the Prime Minister leaving the state on Friday, the 6th of December. Let's take a look. While I tried to get my stuff off the port, just make a little dollar, me and the rest of us. Licky ticky, licky ticky, licky ticky. There was no release, no acting Prime Minister. Not that it matters, because the designated acting Prime Minister is helpless and a fraud. But by law, we're supposed to know when the Prime Minister is not on island and who is acting in his absence. And this is by law. The Constitution provides for that. It's against the law not to do so. It is contrary to the letter and the spirit of the Constitution. It is clear we have a rogue Prime Minister. I have been reliably informed that a private jet came from Barbados, Executive Air, it's called, was chartered, came from Barbados to Grenada, picked up the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, and flew him to Guyana to that tiki party there. Now, oh my God. Is it funny? Is it not funny? You want to laugh? You want to cry? Sometimes I want to cry. Sometimes, for the most part, I want to cry. Now, I'm investigating, and I made the call. I made the call to Barbados. A total, of course, they didn't know why I was calling. I want to charter a plane, right? A total of roughly 55,000 EC dollars was spent on that trip. Between 17 and 19,000 US dollars is the cost of the round trip, but it's a package, and hotel is an extra 500 US dollars per night. The Prime Minister spent 3 nights. That's 1,500 US dollars. Now, how my maths going? How all the family maths going? Tell me the truth. How all the family maths going? The maths going good. It's going damn good. The adult class is working. I want to tell Mr. Orlando Remain that the adult class working. Thanks very much, sir. Thank you. Thanks for the classes. It working. Because with NDC is maths for so is figures for so we have to find out where the money gone. We have to do multiplication, we have to do subtraction, we have to add, we have to take away, we have to borrow and give back. When it comes to NDC, we can't find the money. Right? Anyway, I used the 19,000 USD because he's a man of class. He can't stay in Montreal. He had to stay in the 20 odd $1,000. I think it's 20,500 according to the budget. Rent he's paying monthly for where he's staying because he's a man of class. So he had to get it the higher. So I used the 19,000, right? I did the 1,500, and all that is USD, right? And that came up to 20,500 US dollars. And I multiplied that by 2.67, and I got a total of 54,735 EC dollars. So I just round that off at 55,000 because he's a man of class. How the math's going? You're brute. The math's going good. Yeah, man. Who footed that bill is the question. Not with the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique wetting severely when it rains, which is almost daily. Not with the government who is unable to keep up with the subsidy to the school feeding program. Our nation kids are going to school hungry, some of them getting dry bread for breakfast, dry bread for lunch, some of them. We can't keep up this so-called free school feeding program. Your free school feeding program. Now, even if the trip was sponsored, because we probably know that might be coming. He said before, anybody who invites him, but this is not a government, this is a private company's party. Anybody who invites him has to pay, and if they didn't pay, he's not going. Tim. Right? So even if somebody offer you $55,000 to go, just their expenses, to come to a party in Guyana. If I am prime minister or any kind of minister, I would say, listen, the kids in Grenada really need that money. Can you sponsor the school feeding program for the year 2025 or something? But somebody with a conscience would not spend $55,000 on a 3-night overstay in Guyana for a party, right? And we don't have gauze and painkillers in our hospitals and our clinics. We don't have Band-Aid. Right now, we don't have a anesthesiologist, or haven't had one for weeks, if not months. Operations have to be cancelled. The young, the elderly have to be living in pain, depending on their conditions that they need, what they needed the operation for. Because we don't have anesthesiologists. And I've heard before we had one. So the work was still limited to only to emergencies. Right? But you know, in Guyana, having a good time. See, when you look around the corner, so when he was dancing with the lady in the red dress, the Indian. Folks, that bong to be a sin. Bong. Well, that one called for a bong. That there, bong to be a sin. Now, what happened to the direct flight from Guyana is my question. Do you remember they just had a launch of a direct flight from Guyana to Grenada and back? Well, I shouldn't ask, because he couldn't take the police boat. What's the name of the police boat? The Coast Guard. The Coast Guard to Carriacou after burial. He had to be airlifted by helicopters daily. Up to now, we would really like to know the bill for that helicopter. Even though he borrowed, he had to put fuel, he had to pay the man who flying the helicopter, right? So I'm questioning the Guyana-Grenada flight, the direct flight. An accomplishment of his travels. Remember when he was being questioned, I think it was on the Bub report, I stand corrected, that about his travels. That was his thing. When he going to just go, so he just bring back stuff. And look, we have now, because he had gone to Guyana that recently then. Like he make good connections in Guyana. Guyana is the place in the region. After that is Dubai and Nigeria. Now, an accomplishment of his travels, right? That was when he rammed that in there when he was talking about his travels. And look, he just organized a direct flight from Guyana to Grenada. He was so proud of it. And he announced his achievement on his travels. Inter-Caribbean direct flight to and from Grenada and Guyana. Though it wasn't his to celebrate, because investigations suggest that negotiations started in 2022, before his coming. The negotiations to get that direct flight from Guyana to Grenada started in 2022, before his coming. More lies, more deception. The Prime Minister returned on Sunday, the 8th December, attended the closing of a cricket tournament in his constituency. I think it was in Malmont, St. David, and left Grenada on Monday, the 9th, for Miami. In a release dated December 9th, 2024. Now, he was able to, well, they put up a release for his travel to Miami, right? Which he left on Monday the 9th. And we still waiting for the release for the travel. You know, I got to get my glasses to read these things. Now, the release, Monday the 9th December 2024, the Prime Minister and the Chairman of CARICOM, Lord, I don't know what he going to do because he only have a few days left as Chairman of CARICOM and back to being Prime Minister of Grenada, right? The Honorable Deacon Mitchell is poised to deliver a keynote address in the 2024 Connected Caribbean Summit. This year's event is set to take place between December 9th and December 12th in Miami under the theme Collaborating for Caribbean Solutions. Prime Minister Mitchell will address the gathering on Tuesday, 10th December, on the topic Action Time, Accelerating Caribbean Integration and Development. The summit also speaks of I'm coming to the part where the Honorable Andy Williams, Minister of Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation, will act as Prime Minister in the absence of the Prime Minister, Honorable Deacon Mitchell, who is scheduled to return to the state on Wednesday, December the 11th, 2024. That was yesterday. I know because not all the time when they say coming back, the date, he returns on that date. Now, we know that Andy Williams is our is our acting Prime Minister. We did not have one the weekend before. And I like that. That music is so good. I ain't gonna like that. In a matter of days, as I said, Honorable Deacon Mitchell is about to resume his position as Prime Minister of Grenada as he hand over Chairman of CARICOM. I hope whoever is the Chairman of CARICOM next is taking the CARICOM roundabout with them, because that I saw. By the way, the banana trees need weeding. They need weeding. The RSS plane will get a rest, and our regional CARICOM heads will stop shoo-shooing behind our backs about the abuse of the RSS plane, which spells Regional Security Services. That's a plane. I remember during COVID, the RSS plane would come and take the samples down to Trinidad, and it have its purpose and Regional Security Services. We know of secret rendezvous like the one in St. Kitts, a weekend of pleasure, accompanied by his friend and learned colleague at the time, who's now the Chief of Staff. No release was put out, no announcement was made of the Prime Minister leaving, and we had no acting Prime Minister. Breaking the law. The rendezvous of the island on the yacht. The weekends spent out at sea, beyond the seas of Grenada, beyond the boundaries of Grenada. Breaking the law. We still need to know, though, when was Teddy St. Louis appointed as Chief of Staff, or rather, advisor, and then Chief of Staff? In a matter of hours, while in Nigeria, he was addressed as advisor to the Prime Minister. When photos was leaked, so to speak. Well, it wasn't really leaked. It was a news media house in Nigeria releasing the news to Nigerians that the Grenadian Prime Minister is in Nigeria visiting Dangote. And when those photos came out, there was Mr. Teddy St. Louis posing with the Prime Minister and his executive secretary. And so when they went to visit the governor, we heard that Teddy St. Louis was an advisor to the Prime Minister. But by the time they landed in Grenada, we were told he is the chief of staff. So we still need to know when this appointment took place, right? We still need to, they really take us for fools. They really take us for fools. So we are 2 days away, folks, from the long-awaited convention of the new National Party, the talk of the town. Nothing matters anymore, right? All that matters right now is the NNP convention on Sunday, the 15th of December. 2 candidates applied for the position of political leader of the party, that's the NNP party, Mrs. Emmeline Pear and Mr. Peter David, who are making their last appeal to the delegates for their support. May the best candidate win. Now, it was Dr. Mitchell to all, where you going? You need to come out of there. You need to stop. He only pretending. He say he going. He's still there. Don't worry about this Emmeline Pear thing. He going. He know he going. He that going. Emmeline is up front. All of that. They beat up on him. They beat up on him only to find out that the truth is he's not going. No, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. Right? Because he didn't even apply. So it means it's not going. And as I heard the General Secretary? Yes, Mr. Bola saying on the To The Point program on GBN that no, they're not allowing persons to be called from the floor. They're not allowing, that's not allowed in this convention. I don't know the people laws, I don't know the constitution, I don't know, but that is what he said. So I'm just saying that to say that all the talk about is going to call from the floor, he's going to be called from the floor, nominated from the floor, and what, and it's a plot and it's a thing. All of that get beat down. And so now we end up with Peter and Emmeline. I however, in my capacity as political commentator, will put in my 2 pence. As a matter of fact, I take that back. That's not 2 pence. It would be $2. $2. And we'll start off by saying what goes around comes around. As early as 2010, right after the 2008 general election, when the Tillman-Thomas-led NDC won 11-4 against the NNP, the Peter David faction started to lift their ugly heads. And festering and contaminating the NDC party. Today, the same set are now festering and contaminating the NNP party. They were not going to another, and I quote, not going to another general election with Tillman Thomas as their leader, which was a plot from the very beginning, because going into the election, even from 2003, you knew that Tillman Thomas was the leader. So how you mean, after they won the 2008 election. And he, as leader, became prime minister. The man is the prime minister. The NDC constitution states that no leader, no prime minister, would be contested for leadership, for political leader, whilst in office. In other words, Uncle Tilly being the prime minister, no one, when you go to convention, there would be no contest for leader of the party, because as long as NDC is holding a prime minister, right? If you understand what I'm just saying, right? Then another thing, the Constitution states that the leader of the party, they give them 3 years before anyone can contest against them. That is, if they don't have a sitting prime minister, and the person that is political leader, that person would remain for 3 years. We're looking for stability, right? For 3 years before we change that or try to change that political leader. Knowing all of that, the Peter David faction decided, and saying it, they're not going into another election with Prime Minister Tillman Thomas as the leader. So in other words, Tillman come out today, Peter become the leader, and he goes into the next election as the leader of the NDC. And so if NDC wins that next election, then he is the Prime Minister of Grenada, right? That's why I say, what goes around comes around, right? So he strategically positioned himself then and used that power to coerce the chairpersons of the different branches of the party to support him. He was the general secretary of the party. So the general secretary is in charge of the chairpersons of the party and, well, in charge of the engine, basically. So the general secretary will meet with the chairpersons periodically and that sort of thing. And then, of course, you have, NDC has 3 assistant general secretaries for the different zone that helps out the gen sec. Now, so he managed to get the chairpersons and pay them. I think the amount was $1,500 at the time, right? Allegedly, the amount, just the amount, $1,500. And all except one, the one for the Northeast St. George. Paid them. Got them to, paid them to support him. Got them to pen a letter, or should I say a letter was penned in their name. They signed. Sent to the NEC, the National Executive Council, that letter, stating that they support Mr. Peter David for leader of the party, and they do not support Mr. Tillman Thomas, or Prime Minister Tillman Thomas at the time. But since it's party thing, we say the political leader of the party. All along, hiding behind skirt, dress, pants, panty, anything he could find. Because remember, Peter David, he don't want power. When people say he's power hungry and he's fighting for power, he don't want power. No, that is not Peter David. He doesn't want power. Well, if he doesn't want power, why are you trying to be leader, political leader? I know he's being pushed. That's one of the narrative. What, pushing a pram? You wearing Pampers? You 3 months old? and you've been pushed in a pram, you're in Pampers, you're a big man. So who pushing? If you're being pushed and you don't want to, then that is definitely a characteristic that we don't want in a leader. Right? Definitely so. Now, children, babies, after 6 months, just try to climb out of their pram, try to climb out of their crib. You're a big, hard-back man. And bawling, yeah, you don't want leader. He's being pushed. Eh? So, but using his power as General Secretary, he also demanded that all party branches and arms of the party, both youth and women's arm, postpone the annual general elections, the AGMs, until the party was united again. Now, who have the party in factions? Right? You and your people. And then you say, we can't have elections. What goes around comes around. So the branches were stopped from having elections. But the constitution of the NDC allows for the women arm and the youth arm to have their own election. We don't get elected, or the women's arm and the youth arm don't get elected in the convention. We have our own AGMs. And so the women's arm, we went on our own. The women at the time, we went on our own and we had our AGM. And yours truly was elected president of the women's arm. We tried to have the meeting, the AGM, in the what we call the headquarters at the time on Lucas Street, right? A building that Mr. Peter David was, his parents, his mom, I think, was in charge of, and so we were able to use it through him. They locked us out. They locked us out of the building. We could not get to use the building. But as wise as we were and suspected that that was going to happen, we organized to use the Wesley House building across the street from where the headquarters was at the time. And so when we got to Lucas Street and the headquarters was locked up, we couldn't get in. We tried calling, no answer, we couldn't get in. He went across the street and held the AGM, and I was elected president of the women's arm. And the women's arm from then took control of the party and saved the brand, the NDC brand. They said, all and beyond the headlines, it was said that we're null and void. The women's arm, the elections was null and void. Not according to the constitution of the party. So we moved on. And together with Prime Minister Tillman Thomas, Mr. Nazim Book, and Glenn Noel, those were the ones who were up front there with us. We managed to save the brand of the party that today we have while the country is in trouble. The NDC brand is also in trouble. Again, right? So when I say what goes around comes around, just listen, pay attention to what I'm telling you, right? Following the rules of the NDC convention, as I said, the women's arm took off. We held meetings, we held fundraisings, we did what we had to do. We came up with the slang, no Tilly, no NDC. And that's what finished them off. That's what really finished them off, the no Tilly, no NDC slang. So we were able to wriggle through and held our AGM. And despite the demand of Mr. Peter David, the Jensen of the NDC at the time. The position of the chairpersons remained the same. They were the ones he had already was able to manipulate and had in his pocket. And so literally speaking, and so they remain, right? And the chairpersons of the different branches, they automatically are members of the national executive of the party. So you're talking about 14 votes there whenever there needed to be a vote. Now, the president of the Women's Arm, along with, I was also elected at the convention, don't remember if it was probably the 2012, one of the 2012 convention, as deputy chairman of the party. And in 2018, right immediately after the general elections, I resigned all my positions. I resigned because I held that position of president of the Women's Arm from 2012 or 2011, I believe, when the faction, the Peter David faction, started to raise their ugly heads. From 2011 to right up to 2018. And I resigned from that position then, along with the chairman, the deputy chairman of the party. And I also resigned as a member of the NDC then. So I resigned my positions. And today, that's right after the election, when I hear, up till recently, I had to ask someone on Facebook, please tell me what it is that I wanted. He said I've degenerated because I did not get what I wished for. Some of them say what I wanted, what I asked for. I do not know what I asked for or wanted or wished for, and neither do they, because every time I hear it and I ask the question, please tell me what it is I asked for, what it is I wanted, what it is I wished for, then they disappear because they cannot tell me. But you see, it was repeated, all propaganda, still old propaganda on the propaganda station with their propaganda mouthpiece. And so they go on with it, that I didn't get what I wanted, right? I gave NDC of me. I gave NDC. NDC never gave me none. I don't want anything. I never asked NDC for anything. I gave them a home when they was thrown out in the streets after the 2013 election, when the landlord put chains and padlocks on the doors in Tempe, and they had nowhere to meet. Who meeting under mango tree? I picked them up off the streets and gave them a place to stay for 5 years without paying a cent rent. Are you telling me I wanted something? When I asked NDC at the end of the 2018 election to pay something, because things were bad then, to pay something, they could continue to stay. They grabbed their stuff, and I tell you, literally grabbed their stuff, went with pieces of concrete and paint off the walls, leave the garbage on the floors. I couldn't show somebody the place until I wrote a serious letter, email to members of the NEC, the Prime Minister, the Chairman, everybody, asking them to clean it up, right? And it was Mr. Larry Barry who, on his own, with a couple of friends of his, went up there and cleaned up the space for me so that I can show it to get it rented, right? When they left with and saying that they're going to rent with intentions to purchase the place they're going to rent. They don't have a cent in their name. They own everybody, millions, but they're going to rent with intentions to purchase. They're still renting. Well, I think it's the MP for Northeast now that's in there still, because it was Mr. Book who started to rent there for the Northeast. well, I don't know where there's meet now, if there is meet. I don't hear nothing about the NDC National Executive, the NEC. You don't hear about them. Right? They moved. Right? They're not a good bunch of people. It's a curse. They continue to treat people badly. People who helped them, people who supported them, the people who did the work in the trenches, they continue to treat them badly and expect you to stay on and hang along. I left NDC, I was NDC for nothing. I gave in my resignation and I gone. I'm a free agent now. Hey. So when them Johnny come lately, the surrogates, and the ones who on Facebook living in the diaspora who don't know two hoots about what went on or what is going on with NDC, who has done nothing to help up NDC, start to talk about what I wanted. Catch all your fallen self. Catch all your fallen self. I wanted nothing and still want nothing from NDC or to do with NDC. All you like to interfere with me, no, don't interfere with me. Don't interfere with me. There were days, my friends, when the executive meetings of the NDC with Peter David as Gensec would bring extra forces at NEC meetings. People who were not members of the NEC, and also those who don't normally come to the NEC. It was the same bunch of us, me even know if it made 15 of us, that used to be there, probably 10, 12 for the most part, that used to attend meetings. But any day you see, you walk up those steps and you open the door and enter and you see chairs line up from wall to wall, rows of chairs, you know that the Peter David faction is coming for a vote on something, and they bring in extra forces. What goes around comes around, right? People who are not members of the NEC were allowed to come into NEC meetings and vote for the faction when they well please, right? So today, when I hear Mr. David and his crew crying for and speaking of gerrymandering, I can't help but laugh and say again, say it with me, what goes around comes around. Let's hear Mr. Peter David on the Bob report.
What is the future role for Mr. Peter David in the new National Party if you become the leader? If you do become the leader, there are still going to be those questions around unity and unifying and galvanizing the political organization. If you do not become leader, there would still be questions around unity and galvanizing the organization.
Well, I think
what happens post December 15th, sir?
Well, we have to get to December 15th, and one of the major issues I have with December 15th is what I consider to be undemocratic practices. I've raised it in the party. I've raised it with members of the party. What I call the gerrymandering of the voters list, the whole mechanism. You know, the screening committee, for example, that's there. The fact that there are a few people elected by the executive to determine whether or not persons can run to screen them. The fact that, in the constituencies, we've seen complaints from constituency branches and leaders in the constituencies, in significant constituencies, that are saying that the list has been gerrymandered and that the list that will go to the executive is not a list that reflects the wishes and the desires of the people on the ground. Those are issues that we must address. And I think before we get to the 15th, the question is, will the outcome on the 15th be reflective of what the people of the NNP wants?
So I tell you all a story. One day, Mr. David, I think it was his birthday, and he came to meeting and he left early. He and his group, they left one person to, I guess, pay attention. And at that meeting, the deputy political leader, who was Mr. Nazim Burke, chaired the meeting and decided to overturn, with the ones of us that was there so we could vote. He called a vote for us to remove the ban on the branches holding AGMs to name the new executive. And we voted, and of course, it was just us there, so it was overturned, right? So we decided in the south of the island that we were going to vote out Glenys Roberts and some of the chairman. We were going to vote them out, the faction from the south in it. The Peter David faction got all sorts of persons off the street in the south, brought them up to the headquarters, the line all outside on Lucas Street as new members. So they didn't have no certain money there. They didn't have to be financially, just pay, I think it was $5 or $10, right, to register. Brought them to register. And when we went to that meeting in the Grannon's primary school, we saw people we did not know where they came from. And they came and voted. So when you hear about gerrymandering lists, what goes wrong comes wrong. Right? His partner in crime, his mouthpiece, Kennedy Boulder, in a conversation with Ian Django Thomas, one of the most outspoken NDC activists. We ain't talking NDC, we're talking discussing NNP's convention with one of the most outspoken. These people are so corrupt. I would use the word corrupt there. All of them. We're talking gerrymandering. Yeah, KB. Just say KB.
This convention could go anywhere. It is very unpredictable because you have a lot of silent voters in this convention. You have people close to Kit and you still don't want him.
Yeah.
But they dare not let people know the intention for the convention. You understand?
Yeah.
They understand what's going on. So, even we, our delegate counts, cannot be 100% certain because on the last, they could change delegates.
Yeah, they could change. That is another threat.
You understand?
That is another threat, yeah.
Yes, because we have an idea, see any idea, who they targeting for constituency. We have an idea. But they're so frightened. They don't mind gerrymandering in every constituency.
Gerrymandering again. Folks, for those of you who don't know the meaning of the word gerrymandering, it is the political manipulation of electoral district boundaries to advantage a party group or socioeconomic class within the constituency. If anybody know about gerrymandering, it's Peter David and his faction. When NDC, they gerrymandered. So you know what goes wrong comes wrong. I'll say it again. What goes wrong comes wrong. I'll speak to KB and Django in a minute if I have the time. To continue, Peter David brought to a NEC meeting, the National Executive Council meeting, pollster Peter Wickham to try and convince us at the NEC level that he was the most popular leader within the NDC and that he should lead the party into the next general election, which would have been the 2013 elections. But he ain't one power, eh? He ain't one power. Wickham came with a slideshow, graph and all. And one of the stalwarts of the party, who Peter had convinced and managed to hoodwink over to his side. But they left shortly after when they came to realize who and what exactly was going on. He left. He didn't last long as Williamson fire with that faction. The Peter David faction continued to eat away at the leadership of the party. Oh, I didn't tell all of that. Wickham and the stalwart left just as they came. They wasn't able to buy us over with that graph that they come showing us up and down and up. It didn't work. As a matter of fact, some of the women in there, they decided, I ain't gonna name names, decided, listen, I mean, for some of the times when some of the faction decided they all up in Uncle Tilly's face, all up in, getting on as they're ready to fight. One time we take off we shoe, we high heel, we say, well, we fighting too. High heel shoe in the head. Because it came that close to physical, to get physical in NEC meetings. I used to have stomach ache, knots in my stomach, my knee buckling, climbing up the steps from H.A. Blaze Street, by the Methodist Church to go up on Lucas Street. My knees buckling going up to NEC meeting. Because you're going to start off all nice, and the gents are all nice, and then he's not saying anything, But his boys come to fight, and they getting on arrogant and bloodshot, red eyes. Sometimes you swear they smoke weed before they come in. And you frightened. But they came very close more than once to get physical with Uncle Tilly in NEC meeting. The disrespect, the level of disrespect and disgusting behavior. And today you want to lead a party and country? And saying and complaining and hiding behind skirts and frocks and whatever you get again. And complaining about gerrymandering and people and people not going by the Constitution? Oh, really? Oh, really, Mr. David? Some of you might remember that whilst the NDC party led by Tillman Thomas held a public meeting on the Lance in Guav, St. John, the Peter David and his faction had a meeting and a beach lime in La Sagesse, St. David. They're still members of the party. They're still members of the executive. He's still a GenSec of the party. The party is having a meeting in St. John. The prime minister, the leader of the party, is in St. John. And there in La Sagesse, disrespect. What goes around comes around. They call themselves the progressive forces, asking people to join the progressive forces to overthrow the prime minister, to go against the constitution of the party. They were ready to call a special convention to overthrow the prime minister, the leader of the NDC. And when that didn't work, with the women's arms standing up to them, ask Uncle Tilly and he would tell you. Ask Mr. Nazenberg, they would tell you. They couldn't done thanking the women's arm after we finally got rid of this progressive forces. Albeit it was illegal, but it came down to that they had to expel them. That didn't stop them from eating away at the party, And that is how they land up inside the NNP to make sure the NDC, by that time NDC was in scraps already. I mean, the faction, there was a big crack down the middle. Well, not down the middle, but there was a big crack. And so it was hard to pick up the pieces in such a short space of time, while they still had to run a country as well, to to win the 2013 elections. And we lost 15-0, right, to the NP. They publicly showed their disrespect towards the leaders of the party and the sitting prime minister. Peter David still as Gensec, as I mentioned. Today, they're talking about unity and want people to surround them to unify. Today, what goes around comes around. Peter David and Glenys Roberts refused to sign for the new instruments when the prime minister reshuffled his cabinet, and they were reshuffled, they were shuffled. Shouldn't a leader lead by example? What did Tillman Thomas do to deserve that disrespect? If you want to lead, how come you disrespecting the leader, the sitting leader? If you become leader and prime minister and you shuffle your cabinet and they say, and a couple of them say they're not going, how would you feel? What would you do? You might fire them, huh? Today you're talking about gerrymandering. Folks, Peter David had a slate in the 2012, was it 2012 convention? Separate from the slate of the NEC. Normally the NEC, come together and they have a slate and they say, this is who we'd like. Because you don't want to bring anybody into your national executive, the NEC. And it's the same goes for NEP. So when I hear they talking about the screening and blah, 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 what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? The undemocratic. If all of a sudden they know about democracy, right? And so Peter David, he had his slate because remember they're not going into the next election with the peasant boy. So it came now, they started to call Uncle Tilly a peasant boy. Now, mind you, the constitution that Mr. Peter David seemed to have discovered in the NNP, that he's saying the Dr. Mitchell and going against the constitution of the NP. NDC had a constitution as well. And the constitution, as I said before, states that the prime minister cannot be challenged for leadership of the party as long as he is a sitting prime minister. Cannot be challenged. And if he's not the prime minister, just a political leader, that's a constitution, cannot be challenged for 3 years as political leader. So Mr. Peter David and his faction was going against the constitution of the NDC party to try and unseat Tillman Thomas. There is a word for that. Isn't it treason? Isn't it treason? And isn't treason a crime? I blame Uncle Tilly for where we are. And when I say we as a country, we as a people, again, have to be dealing with this tug of war and this pull and tug for leadership, and because he sat on the files of the Peter David faction and continue to sit on it. Now, a peasant is a pre-industrial agricultural farmer with limited land ownership. Peasants work land themselves, relying above all on family labor and other small-scale forms of organizing labor. So, to Mr. David, Tillman, being a peasant, should not rise to leadership and should not lead him, right? I wonder who's the peasant in NNP. You know what is ironic about this leadership thing, this leadership saga? Peter David was Tillman Thomas' blue-eyed boy, one of two individuals who drove up to Hermitage after the win, although they make him speak in the dark in Montrouge because they were planning and organizing to make the announcement that Peter David is the Prime Minister of Grenada because they thought Tillman was going to lose his seat since they worked underground so that he could lose his seat. But he made it through by the skin of his teeth. God wasn't sleeping. So went up to Hermitage to form the cabinet of Grenada. He took tourism and foreign affairs for himself, strategically, again. And so if he wasn't impatient and power hungry and greedy for political leadership of the NDC, he would have ultimately been handed on a platter the political leadership of the NDC when Tillman stepped down because he said that he was only going to do 2 years. The man ain't even make 1.5 year good. I mean, not 2 years, but 2 terms. He was going to only do 2 terms, right? He ain't even make 1.5 year good. And they decided they want rid of him, right? So become the leader and ultimately Prime Minister of Grenada. He was popular. He was most popular minister among the others when it comes to him, Nazareth. And he was, because he has a way. You know, yeah. Doing no work, but could work his way, if you understand, right? And I don't think nobody would have even go up against him for leadership. It was kind of expected. No, but he wanted now. He wanted now. So when they continue to eat away at the party and destabilize both the party and the government like they're doing now. Now you're in a party. You want to be leader of the party. And you destabilizing members, the sitting leader, the party, and the government. Are you crazy? So when let's suppose you win. Who are you sitting amongst? After you, this is Grenada. This is a country with how much? 120,000 people. This is not America, where what's going on in Washington, nobody knows in Florida and vice versa. Everybody had their own news, everybody doing their own thing more or less. And so you don't know that somebody sit in Florida and say they can't stand Sleepy Joe. You understand? So I never understood that. And they continue to do the same thing, the same MO. People don't even learn from their mistake. And you want to lead country? Huh? So as they continue to eat away at the party and the government, they were expelled. Along this, I think it was about 13 of them. They were expelled illegally. When it came down to it, found out that it was illegal against the constitution of the party because they were not brought to the disciplinary committee. They were not given letters of warning or anything like that. They were just expelled. And at the time, it couldn't be helped. And at the same SAS school, the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School in Telescope, that they're going up on Sunday, they'll be expelled, but in a different way. They'll be voted against in a convention. And you all would say, I said it here, they're going to take a whooping, a good whooping. That is what they deserve. That is what they deserve in the NDC. They should not expel them. They should have bring them in the convention. But anyways, they didn't show and give them a good whooping. No. after they were expelled, everybody expected Peter to form his own party. It was rumored that they were forming their own party. Glennis Roberts, a bunch of them was expelled. Joe Gilbert, Ali Gill, you name it, they all were expelled. Chester Humphrey. And so they said they were forming their own party. But remember, Peter don't want power. That's what they're telling us as the general public. So it was decided, we got the clip, and you know the tapes don't lie, that in a meeting they decided that Peter was not going to be the leader of the new party, NUF, the National United Front, and that Glennis Roberts would take the leadership, and that at the convention, when they have the convention, then they would have contest, and then that's when he would contest and of course win for leadership. When them there making Mawet and looking back for Peter, I'll know the next step from looking back for Peter, because Peter never showed. Peter then took him and his boys to Dr. Mitchell and the NNP. Granted, most of the NNP executive members did not want them in there. They said Dr. Mitchell went against most of his fellow colleagues inside the NNP executive and took him in. Wasn't he a dictator then? When he took them in against the wishes of most of his executive members? The same had happened in NDC when they wanted to come in NDC. When they came back from their studies and so on, they landed back in Grenada and they never want to form their own. They always wanted ready-made. So when they went to the NDC, the chairman and Gensek and those who used to be in the headquarters at the time used to tear up their applications. Some of the same ones who left NDC and went to NNP with Peter David. Tear it up and throw it in the garbage. It was Tillman Thomas who spoke of reconciliation and took them in, and then they wanted to overthrow him right after he took them in. They wanted to overthrow him. And we're talking about gerrymandering. What goes around comes around. So they never showed up at NUF, and they landed in the NNP. And folks, I said it at the time I hosted the NDC Heartbeat program, and I said it there, that these guys are going to do the same thing they did in NDC, because it was all about power. It was all about power. And so it was harder for them to try and get to the top almost immediately. So they sit down and they wait and they wait and they wait until Dr. Mitchell say he ain't going back. Boom! Here we are. Be ready. And they asked Dr. Mitchell to give Peter leadership and make him leader of the opposition right after the 2022 general elections. And when that didn't happen, that's when they started to come out under the ground as woodans and eat away at the NNP. The same thing they did in the NDC. And today, Dr. Mitchell is being told by many, I told you so, we told you so, not to bring those boys in the party. Same individuals, same khaki pants, same MO. Now they're talking gerrymandering. Now they're talking gerrymandering. I won't waste time on KB and Django at the moment, because we're running out of time and I have some more important things to talk about in the back. So what KB and Django do there, I don't know if it was leaked. To me, it was a setup to look for sympathy out there. So they set up the whole thing, and that's in my mind, my opinion, and then leak it and then act like it was leaked. 2 people in a car, 1 on the phone, the conversation being recorded. If it leaked, everybody know who leaked it. So I don't know about being leaked. The said KB, when he was a member of the NDC, because on the Bob report, when Dr. Bob asked Peter about him bringing KB into the NNP with him, he said, no. I met KB there. KB was always a member of the NNP from inception. That might have been so. But there was a time when KB left the NNP and was a member of the NDC, a card-bearing member, because he used to be in our general councils and our convention as a delegate. Now today, I hear he's not a card-bearing member and he can't even vote in the convention that coming up there. All the talking and supporting the man, he can't even vote in the convention. And so for most of them that they're talking, they can't vote. They're not financial and card-bearing members of the NNP. Anyways, so Peter David was the Gen Secretary of the party. And in a general council in 2012, in St. John, in Guelph, I think that school is the Anglican school, in the back of the gas station in St. John. I think it's the Anglican school. I'm not sure if it's Anglican, but I do believe it's Anglican. But that school, you know what I'm talking about. Kennedy Boulder, amongst a lot of other delegates, got up and spoke out against Peter David and him not doing the work of the General Secretary as he should. One individual came with a dictionary in that meeting because it was said time and time before that he's not, in conventions and general council, he's not giving reports, he's giving speeches. And I remember that speech like yesterday. Oh, it was an awesome speech. And he said after every little paragraph, we come too far to turn back. Nice and subtle. We come too far to turn back. And Mr. Antoine, Flavian Antoine, I'll never forget, got up with his dictionary and read out the meaning of report, right? KB got up in that general council and said to address Tillman Thomas, the leader and prime minister, and said to him, if you don't get rid of Peter David as general secretary of the party, he will destroy the NDC. Well, thing turned to almost a fight. Some of the members from the tongue of St. George, I remember, I think it was Tongue Man, they used to call him, ooh, he wanted to kill KB. They landed up outside in the yard, right? And Simon says, have the tape to show.
There was a verbal war at the NDC's General Council on Sunday as party supporters went at each other about the performance of one of the leading figures on the executive.
An avid supporter of the ruling National Democratic Congress, Kennedy Boulder, created a major stir at the party's General Council meeting on Sunday when he aired views about his dissatisfaction with the performance of the NDC's General Secretary, Peter David. A number of David's supporters, however, walked out of the meeting to show their disapproval with Kennedy's statements, and the commotion continued on the outside.
I don't, listen to me, you don't come in this kind of forum and try to belittle him. I'm not doing that. Yo, what is all of that? Let the man stop. What is all of that? Peter should be fired from that post. Fired for what? Why is not functioning, KB? Why is he not functioning? I can handle myself. Why is not functioning? It's the government that sent him to do what he's doing. When he leaves the country, he's not living on his own. All you're talking about is attacking the
But Budlal says he will not be swayed for sharing his opinion.
He don't functioning as a general secretary. The general secretary is supposed to be the engine of the party, going around in the country and building structures in the different constituency, and he's not performing with distinction. The Prime Minister is a little too insensitive to the suffering of those NDCites who had been marginalized and victimized over the years. If the Prime Minister is of the opinion, he is a very honest man, and he expects everybody to be honest, and everybody should deal with every grain in a fair way. But it don't happen.
He says some of the party leaders seem to have gotten comfortable with their position.
No, my people don't agree, because you see what happened. All of them decide to take opportunistic position and try to pamper Peter and pamper the Prime Minister. But I want to take an independent position.
Do you see the discord being sown in the NDC?
Well, he have some, yeah, a little bit. But I feel, I decide I'm going to take a position. I'm not on a popularity campaign, so I didn't care if I risk, let's say, my social acceptability with the people around me. I don't care if that was a risk. The most important thing, I speak from my heart.
Budlal says the party's leaders must regain the confidence of the people and refocus as they go forward. Oslin Crosby, CC6 Newsnight.
So that was Kennedy Budlal there at the NDC as a delegate at the NDC 2012, one of the NDC 2012 General Council, because the party is supposed to have 2 General Councils a year. That was one of the General Council in St. John, in Guelph, in the Anglican school. No, the lady in the Afro behind is not me. I wasn't wearing Afro there. But I was at that General Council, and I stood up at that General Council and said to Mr. David that his actions and his words were not matching, because at these sessions, General Council, he comes with a lovely speech, right? Talking about unity, talking about unifying. That one was a very unifying speech. But right after the General Council, they do differently. There are people that invited us to a retreat in the stadium to try and unify the party when the thing started to get ugly. And we gone and we had the meeting, we had the retreat. And the minute time we break for lunch, they gone in a corner and you could see the plot. We left. Some of us left the retreat and left them to themselves, right? The thing was bad. And I ain't see any difference here than what is going on now. They moved over to the NNP. And they settled themselves. But they didn't know they had another thing coming. Building their own party is too much work and will take too long, right? So they like ready-made. They're going after the ready-made. But the NNP, delegates, members, supporters, and the majority of the NEC, their national executive, said not so fast. In an interview on YouTube, KB said himself and Dr. Mitchell and Prescott Swan and Soka Boka and Winston White and others met and planned the demise of H.A. Place, taking over the leadership from him, right? It was okay then. But he is upset that Dr. Mitchell is siding with Emmeline Pierre, or so he perceived, because up to now, Dr. Mitchell has never came out and said who he supports going forward, although it's his right to do so. Tilman Thomas supported Nazim Buck in that convention where Franca Bernardine was putting herself up for leader as well. It's their right to support whoever they want going forward. So I wonder what would have happened if it was the other way around. If Dr. Mitchell had thrown his support behind Peter David, it would have been okay because it's their boy, right? It would have been okay. Folks, in that said General Counseling Board, Peter David had a slate, a prepared slate of who he wanted for his executive. The NEC had a slate, Peter David had a slate, right? So this thing, it happens within political parties. Whether it's by the Constitution, whether it's illegal or legal, it happens. It don't happen in the open. It happens behind the scenes. You say you form your slate and you go around because NDC persons putting themselves up for office were allowed to go around to the different branches and say, why me? Whether it's for recording secretary, whatever, PRO. It's a campaign. It's a big campaign, right? As if it's a general election. It is. And so it's never an open thing that say, yeah, we're forming a slate and we don't want this person. No, it's done. It's always been done. So don't let KB and them fool all you into believing that these things never happened before. It happened before and they were part of it before. They did theirs, other people did theirs. It happened before. What goes around comes around. But my question remains, if for some reason Peter David wins the leadership on Sunday the 15th, he had to then call a next convention and get his own members of the executive to sit with him. Who you going and sit amongst when your people been writing long letters as from here to town, they're making derogatory statements in a very derogatory manner about members of the executive, members of the NNP party, and their sitting political leader and member of His Majesty's opposition. Now, all of a sudden, agent matter no more, grandpa, all the stories about grandpa, agent matter be no more, because Peter David is very not far age from grandpa. And that if the NDC decides they're going down to the wire for 2027, Peter David will be 71. So he's asking for a one term. Now, if you have a young, sprightly, intelligent, experienced, competent, compassionate leader vying for leader of your party, would you not give that person the opportunity to build on all the accolades I just mentioned? Instead of having somebody who, because of their age, too old to continue on, so we give them a chance. And so that they could do whatever, bringing all them people that in the bushes in the back, in the camouflage, in the back door, waiting for the door to open to come through. Instead, wouldn't you? Give us a Joe Biden, man. Give us a Joe Biden. Back off. And let the young, sprightly take over. Right? In the meantime, Peter David on the Board report, plain victim. He was not invited, he said, to zonal meetings, and I guess he was been maligned. I followed the meetings, and as it was said, there were zonal meetings. No, Clarice Cohen Modest ended up in almost all the meetings, and then they asked her to bring greetings, and she said she couldn't stay home and not I heard her say it herself. And not show up. Peter could have shown up. If you're a strong man, if you have testicular fortitude, if you are genuine about leading or wanting to lead, who could stop you from showing up in a zonal meeting, whether it's your zone or not? You show up, even if you speak, you dare, you mingle with the people, you meet the people. But no, you attended both of the meetings in your zone. You were in the zone with Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Dr. Mitchell, and Northeast St. George. So Northwest St. George and Northeast St. George and the tongue of St. George. You spoke in the both. You never moved on. You were lazy. You never moved on. You did not even have a meeting in your constituency. And that was not the fault of anyone else but you, Mr. David. You canceled six meetings. You canceled or postponed. Well, you had to say cancel because the thing finished for this year and you never, up till the end of November, you was scheduled to have a meeting in the tongue of St. John, and you cancel it, saying you have to travel. You always have to travel. That's why you do Joe Gilbert when you were supposed to show up. After you make him lose his work, or get expelled from the party, and he went to talk to his constituents, and you, as the leader of the faction, was supposed to be there. You say you had to travel. You traveled the same day. You didn't show up. You left the country when you were supposed to have your meeting, and you're talking about you wasn't invited. Who you are, baby? You were in Pampers? What happened? You in a prom? Eh? Folks, I can sit here for 3 weeks and give you all stories about that bunch and their gerrymandering. But in an effort for time, and I do have a little bit of something I need to talk to you all about still, I'll round it off by saying, what goes around comes around. In an update on the bus shed in Mongay, there was MP Ron Reddit was on the To The Point program and made a statement when asked about the bus shed. And he said, good sense prevailed. And so I was wondering, good sense prevailed? What he didn't tell us was that the case that the owners of the property went to court, taking the planning authority to court, that there was a conclusion, and that the court ruled against the enforcement letter the planning had issued to the owners of the land, as giving them time to take down the fence they put up to stop Ron Redhead from building a bus stop on their property without going through the proper channels. And that's all it was, because the estate of L.A. Purcell, they did say they have no issues with the bus stop going there. But it's not what you do, it's how you do it. Now, the little narcissistic, arrogant upstart didn't say on GBN To The Point that there was even a court case and that the judge ruled in the L.A. Purcell's favor, estate's favor. If you look on the screen, you'd see the letter, the enforcement letter from the planning authority to the owners of the land, where Ron Redhead had encroached on private property, and started to build a bus shed. Though stopped by the property owners, he continued, and which led the owners to fence their property. I spoke to the contractor who removed the fence. As soon as the date was coming up where the planning gave them to remove the fence by a certain date. And he said to me that he was told by Ron Redhead to remove the fence. Play the clip of Ron Redhead on hand.
So far, we have started the construction of the bus shed and was unilaterally stopped by individuals purporting to be of the estate of an owner. For my own reasons, I am not engaging in calling anyone because I have no documentation to suggest that any individual who have done this work owns the property. But in any event, as Member of Parliament, I am totally offended by this unilateral attempt by private individuals to not see the bigger picture and allow the public interest to proceed. In fact, this heckling and unwarranted attempt to fence a strip of property which cannot be used for anything outside of a bus shed is, I am a bit baffled by it. And therefore, I'm saying the only solution now is to have that fence removed. And second is for the individuals purporting to ownership of the property to come to the table and discuss. The method that is being used is simply a bully tactic, one which we will not accept. And I am calling on the family representatives who is purporting to be the owners of the property to do what is just in the interests of the public and that community, Monge. Monge Terry is a peaceful village and has always been known for its peace and tranquility. We don't get involved in this kind of behavior, and therefore disputes with land and all these other things are something that we believe should be handled through the legal channels. And if there is any indication that this belongs to private owners, the government of the day is prepared to acquire the property in the public interest. This was Broken Road, which fell into the river and was reclaimed by the government of Grenada, the previous administration. And we are merely just completing the project to construct the bus shed. And so I am totally offended by this attempt to stop the building of the bus shed. And I call on the individuals involved to cease and you do the right thing and come to the table. As I said, this matter has been taken to the legal route, to Ministry of Lands and the Planning Authority, and will be dealt with in the coming days.
So the land fell into the river. The former administration reclaimed the land. This administration is finishing the project to build the bus shed, but the bus shed already on the land. You know? He started to build the bus shed already on the land. No, that's so idiotic. It's not funny. Then he said the people purporting to be the owners, they showed their papers for the property, you know. He said they're purporting to be owners and they should come to the table. I own my land. You come on my land illegally and telling me come to the table, you know. That's what Ron was saying, you know. All you think it easy? They went to the legal route in truth and they lost the case, right? The guy is lying, and through the planning, he then said that is a strip of land that nothing but a bus stop can be built on. You take the people land and say they can't use it for anything else. So you put in a bus stop on there. Now, after he had the contractor remove the fence and there were legal troubles, this is what he had to say to the point.
If I may ask this particular question, are there any legal matters surrounding this monkey bus shed right now? Are there any legal matters surrounding that?
Well, not with me. I could say I didn't build the bus shed, nor did I remove the fence. It is in the hands of the authorities, so you would have to ask planning development about any legal matters. But I don't have anything pending.
All right, understandably so.
No, you didn't build the bus shed, nor did you remove the fence, but you gave the orders. You were building the bus shed at the bottom of your gap, the road to where you live, you and your mom and your sisters and so where you live, you were building the bus shed at the bottom of that road. You, as MP, ordered the bus to build the bus shed. And you, as MP, ordered the removal of the fence. So it's okay to throw the planning authority under the bus, because they're the ones who was fast and forward enough to send enforcement notice to the owners of the land. Bottom line, the court case concluded. The judge, referring to the Planning Development Authority enforcement letter, said a fence is not considered development and that there was no road reserve since the late L.A. Purcell purchased the property. Therefore, the enforcement letter was illegal and ordered that the fence be put back. L.A. Purcell Estate has agreed to allow the bus shed to be built after discussing with Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. Not you, the foppish young man there, not you. They want the fence at the back to be put back, but they agreed for the bus shed to continue. The only request is that L.A. Purcell be branded, that their company be branded or advertised on the bus shed. All of which was conveyed before all of this thing happened, right? They were ignored by the minister and the MP for St. George Northeast. He was in minister then before he got fired. Them time he was strong, he had power. The L.A. Purcell family continues to be community-oriented, but was appalled by the arrogance and disrespectful bullying behavior meted out to them by the pompous, narcissistic MP of St. George Northeast, Ron Redded, which led to them to take legal actions. And that is why pompous Ron was heard making the statement, "Good sense prevailed." Folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. Oh, how I had some more for y'all. But we really out of time. We passed time going. And so y'all will be grinning today when you get all this time. Anyhow, thank you. Thank you. It's always a pleasure conversing with you, keeping them honest. Thank you for viewing and for joining us on another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. See you next week, same time, same place, for our final show of the year. Okay? And you don't want to miss that one. Some of what we left out, not the convention stuff, that would be gone. We probably would be talking about the winner and what's next. But I have some other stuff here that I need to let you know that you can ponder on over the holidays, and we'll come back full force for the new year. But see you next week, same time, same place. We have a last show for the year for you. Get enough popcorn and drink and pills. Bye now.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.